Let's look at some commonly used audio cable connector types. Before we dive into this, I want you to know I'm not going to get terribly technical about why the cables are created the way they are. We'll save that for another class. This is mostly to help you identify what the cables are so you can quickly get them when you need them, or when somebody asks you to get them. First, we have our XLR cable. This stands for External Line Return. And you don't really need to know that, you just need to know that it's called an XLR. And it can be referred to as a microphone cable as well. This is a typical 1/4 inch. It can also be called a TS 1/4 inch, which stands for tip sleeve, because here's the tip and here's the sleeve. Again, the reason for that we can discuss in a soldering class. It can also be referred to as an instrument cable. Instruments like guitars and keyboards will use this cable. This is a mono cable, meaning it sends one signal down the line. Here we have our stereo 1/4 inch. It can also be called TRS 1/4 inch because it has a tip, a ring, and a sleeve. TRS. These cables are able to send a stereo left-right signal down the line. When you plug in music tracks, this is the type of cable you would use, one with a tip, ring, and sleeve. It gets the name 1/4 inch because it's a 1/4 inch in diameter. Here we have our stereo 1/8 inch. It can also be called TRS 1/8 inch. You might hear it referred to as a stereo mini plug. Again, because here's the tip, here's the ring, and here's the sleeve. That's how you can identify TRS cables. Again, you would use something like this to plug in your music or coming out of a computer into the board. This is the type of cable you might see. This is a speak-on connector. The speak-on cable connectors are the industry standard connectors for amplifier and loudspeaker connections. At our church, we have these connections on stage. These connections are also on some of our amplifiers. This is a Phoenix connector. This isn't something you'll most likely see on stage, but they are used on digital signal processing units and many amplifiers. They're on most of our DSP units, or digital signal processing units, and on some of our amplifiers. So even though we don't see these all the time, we need to be able to identify what kind of connector it is, the Phoenix connector. Here we have an RCA cable. These aren't quite as common these days as they were in the past. They're used for CD players and DVD players, and DJs seem to still use them. RCA cable.